Well, hello, and welcome to the Cactus Cowboy YouTube channel. My name is Dave Rose. I am a longtime record collector, been at it since the 1960s. Subject of today's video will be my 10 favorite albums discovered in the wild. When I say in the wild, I'm referring to thrift shops, antique malls, yard sales, estate sales, and record stores. All of these were bought used with two exceptions, bought new in a record store in 1978. Anyway, these are some great records. I'll include a brief story outlining how and where I found the record. Let's begin with this F.J. McMahon, Spirit of the Golden Juice. This is an original pressing. There are reissues out there. This is a very rare and highly sought after record. F.J. McMahon was a musician. He also went to Vietnam. He was in the service over in Vietnam. When he returned to California, he cut this record. You might describe it as folk rock, singer-songwriter, and the subject matter has a lot to do with his experience in Vietnam. Spirit of the Golden Juice, that refers to a alcoholic beverage that servicemen would encounter in Saigon. The Road Back Home, Sister Brother, Black Knight Woman, 5-Year Kansas Blues. There's the track listing right there. Where did I find this? I found this up in Billings, Montana at Ernie November's record store about 10, 12 years ago. At that point in time, they were pricing classic rock monsters like Doors, Led Zeppelin, Stones, etc. in the $5, $10, $15, $20 and up range. Other records, stuff they didn't recognize or didn't know anything about, they were priced $3 or less. I think I paid $3 for this one. Anyway, it is exceptionally rare. It's a great, great record. I love it. Love to listen to it. And I don't think I'll ever sell it. Interestingly enough, I have my collection listed on Discogs, 18,000 plus items. And I have had numerous Discogs users contact me by private message wanting to buy this record. One fella over in Europe offered me like insane thousands of dollars for the record. I just told him no, I'm going to hang on to it. Anyway, F.J. McMahon, never know what you find in a record store. Sometimes a hidden gem that they just didn't recognize. Next is one I found at an estate sale in Cody, Wyoming, also about 10, 12 years ago. And this was a 50-cent record. Bought this and a couple others. The other records I got that day are not memorable. This one really is cool. Harry Parch was well known for his very unusual music. Avant-garde, I guess you would describe it. And not only avant-garde music, but he made his own musical instruments and trained musicians how to play them. So there was this brochure folded up and tucked in with this record. The record, by the way, is U.S. Highball, a Gate 5 record. It's from 1958, and this was originally released on a different label in 1946, I believe. And anyway, this little brochure goes into the instruments used on this recording. Harry Parch traveled as a hobo back in the 40s, and this as you might imagine, is all related to his travels as a hobo. And they're really quite interesting. My home state of Wyoming gets a shout out in this. Pretty cool record. Here's one I found at a yard sale over in Cody, Wyoming, about almost 15 years ago. Was at a yard sale. Did not see any records, so of course I asked any records or old stereo equipment. And the lady said, "Oh yeah, I've got a footlocker full of them out in the garage." She took me out there, invited me to dig. She wanted to watch while I was digging, so I started flipping through, and it was mostly TUC, the usual crap, just pop and country and just really, really common stuff. I flipped through a couple Elvis records and her eyes lit up. "Oh my God, Elvis! Those aren't for sale. Those aren't for sale. I'm keeping them." I'm thinking, okay, you keep these 1970s Pickwick and Camden reissues. Go ahead and keep them. I'm sure they're valuable. Anyway, I found a Johnny Cash record, which was in really nice shape, and I found this. And I thought, wow, this looks different. So I took it home, and it is really good prog rock from 1976. And White Wing was a band out of Rapid City, South Dakota. They signed with ASI Records. ASI did a abysmal job promoting and distributing this record. It's sold in very, very low numbers. The band, from what I have been able to research, toward the upper Midwest. So that's it. White Wing, self-titled. Michael English is the guy driving force behind this band, and it is really good. If you like prog rock, you would definitely like this. It's a good one. Great story behind this and 1,300 other records. About 2 years ago, I stopped at a junk shop or antique shop in Meeteetse, Wyoming, and I knew the owner, John, fairly well. I'd been in there before. He typically hangs out in an easy chair, drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes. And while I was there, I was digging through a pile of about 500 LPs. Now, there was another fellow there. He was visiting with John, and he was sitting, smoking and drinking coffee. And he was watching me dig, and he said, "Hey, you a record collector?" I said, "Yeah, sure am. Been at it since the 60s. He said, "Yeah, me too." And he asked me, "What are you looking for? What do you like?" And I said, "Well, I listen to a little bit of everything. Jazz, rock, folk, soul, blues, a little bit of everything." And he said, "Wow, neat. We ought to exchange business cards." I said, "Okay, fine." And he explained that he had come into a collection of jazz records in recent months at an estate sale, and he listened to a couple of them, and he said, "It's not really my thing. I don't like jazz." And so so I asked him, "Will you possibly sell them?" And he said, "Yeah, I'd love to sell them." And I said, "What kind of jazz is this?" And he says, "Oh, they're all black guys. This is real jazz." So I thought, okay, it's not a bunch of Benny Goodman and Glenn Miller reissues. So I got his number a week or two later. I called him and I said, "Hey, you remember me?" He says, Yeah. And so we're talking, and his other interest is old stereo equipment, specifically speakers. He liked to buy speakers at yard sales and hot rod them, put in different crossovers and upgrade the tweeters and all that kind of stuff. His hobby. So I said, "You know what? I'd like to come down and look at these records. By the way, I think I have some speakers you might be interested in." And I did indeed. I at the time had 4 rental units here in Powell. One of my tenants moved out, left the place a complete disaster. Yeah, it's bad. But she left some huge Technique speakers in the garage with 15-inch woofers. So I tested them, they worked fine. I put them in my truck and headed down to his place, which was not quite 100 miles away. It was a good drive. So anyway, I got to his place. He had a beautiful man cave, very similar in size to mine, and very similar in that it had wall, floor to ceiling shelving filled with records. In the middle of his man cave was a pile of 17 boxes of LPs. I looked at that and I thought it's got to be over 1,000 records. He said there were 1,300 records in there. So I said, okay, well, let me take a look. I just went to the nearest box. I grabbed 6 records at random, pulled them out, and yes, they were definitely jazz, and I was seeing some really obscure, unknown stuff. I pulled out a couple records. The condition was immaculate. Every record I looked at was near mint. Some looked like they had never seen a needle, never played. And I said to him, well, I'm interested. And I looked at 2 other boxes. I just picked a half dozen out of 3 different boxes and looked at them. And I decided, there's a lot of obscure, interesting, and rare stuff in here. The condition is exceptional, and I'd be crazy if I walked away from this. So I made a deal for the entire lot. I traded the big speakers and some cash for all the records, loaded them up, and brought them back home. And this is just one of many, many gems that I found in that lot. And this is a great, great record. Scott LaFaro on bass, Paul Motion drums, and what can you say? This rightly deserves its status as a classic. It is a great, great jazz record. Love it. Incidentally, there were about 8 to 10 other Bill Evans records in that haul. And incidentally, there is a video on my YouTube channel detailing that haul. It's over an hour long, but well worth checking out. If you're into crate digging, you'll love that video. Anyway, nice find. At a yard sale here in Powell, Wyoming, about 15 years ago, and I flipped through a box of records, nothing unusual with the exception of this plain white sleeve. Okay, pull it out. Let's look at the label. This is the Langston Hughes Memorial Eclectic Improvisational Jazz Exposition. Okay, and it's a private label press out of the Minneapolis area. I'm guessing the early 70s. I can find virtually no information on this group. There are 2 covers: Hard Day's Night by the Beatles and Satin Doll by Duke Ellington. All the rest are originals, just improvised jazz rock, avant-garde jams. Really, really cool record. I love it. I did some Google search and I found a guy in California who had been in the Minneapolis area back in that time frame, and I sent him an email and I said, do you know anything about this band? And I sent him the pictures. And he wrote back and he said, yes, as a matter of fact, I knew those guys. And I think one of the band members' fathers financed the production of the LP. And it was pressed in tiny numbers. Anyway, you will find this on Discogs because I made the entry for a new submission on Discogs. And to this date, I'm the only person who actually owns a copy of this, per Discogs, of course. Almost 20 years ago, I was at a thrift shop in Cody, Wyoming, nearby, 25 miles from my place. And I can't recall if they were charging 25 cents or 50 cents per record back then, but I got this well under $1. It was either 25 cents or 50 cents. This is Miles Davis Baggs Groove. And it is, look at my notes here, it is a 1958 pressing. It was released in 1957, so this would be a second pressing. And it's on the Prestige label. Let's look at the label. Nice. Yellow, black Prestige label. Great, great record. How can you go wrong with Miles Davis, right? You can't. Miles Davis is great. It's a great record. Okay, now I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there are 2 records that I purchased new at record stores. This is one of them. This was a blind buy. I bought it at Mazuka Tapes and Records in Grand Junction, Colorado in 1978 when I was living there. And why did I buy this? Well, first of all, the cover art appealed to me. The band name, Pere Ubu? What the heck? What is that supposed to mean? Pere Ubu, the modern dance. And it was on the blank record labels. Record number 001. Wow, new record label, unknown band. Had to check it out. Took it home, and I was pretty much blown away with what I heard. How do you describe Pere Ubu? This would be like mixing punk and avant-garde and experimental. It's just wild, crazy, crazy stuff. Great record from start to finish. Love it. One of my favorites. I'd probably call this a desert island disc. It's a great record. The other record I bought brand new, also at Mazuka Records and Tapes in Grand Junction, Colorado, was The Resonance. Not available. Although they had released Meet the Resonance earlier in the decade, this was the first Resonance record I ever laid my eyes on. And I was absolutely intrigued by the cover art. All right, that is wild, isn't it? And the back cover, I think that's a still from one of the video productions they made in the 70s. And let's see, ignorance of your culture is not considered cool. Weird. You can join the fan club. There's the label. Orange, black. How to describe this? Avant-garde, art rock, experimental. It is just way, way out there. It is unlike anything else in my collection. I was blown away when I took this home and put it on the turntable. And this was a blind buy. I had no idea who the Residents were, but man, I was shocked when I heard it. It was great. And I have since gone on to buy the remastered reissue from about 12, 15 years ago, which has some previously deleted audio in that version. And that's really good to check out. It's the 2008 or so reissue of this. But this is the original from 78. Okay, now, here's a holy grail. Every record collector is looking for this, I'm sure. Maybe not everybody, but Mamas and the Papas. And the title is If You Can Believe Your Eyes and Ears. And this is the quickly withdrawn cover. Note the toilet on the front cover. That apparently raised a big, big fuss when it was released, and the record company quickly withdrew it and modified the cover to put a little sticker, like Mama's Papa's album sticker covering the toilet. So these are scarce. I bought this at a yard sale for $1, but another part of the story, about 3 or 4 years prior, I had found another copy of this at a thrift shop in Cody, where I got the Bags Groove record. And at that point, they had all the records priced at 5 cents. So I found a copy of this for 5 cents at a thrift shop. It was in G condition. It was pretty much trashed. It was just rough. This one, by the way, is VG+. It sounds wonderful. And cover art aside, this is a great record. I love it. It's from 1966, Mamas and the Papas, with the infamous toilet cover. Now, I'm not far from Billings, Montana. I go up there fairly often. When I'm up there, I go crate digging. About 8-10 years ago, I went to Hastings before it had closed. It shut down about 5 years ago. I went to Hastings on Grand Avenue, and at that time they had a large selection of new vinyl and used vinyl. Now, the guys pricing the used vinyl did not know what in the hell they were doing. I remember seeing a Fleetwood Mac Rumors in VG condition, just ratty, worn out looking Fleetwood Mac record priced at $69.99. Yeah, good luck on that one, guys. But this, I instantly recognized it as a holy grail for classical collectors. This is Jonas Starker Bach Suites for Unaccompanied Cello Complete. And this is an original stereo pressing from 1966, I believe. And there are the labels. They're like red, silver labels. The discs are near mint. Looks like this saw little, if any, play. Oh yeah, there's a nice little booklet that came with it. All right, 3-record set. Now, this is special for a couple reasons. When I was a child, just a little baby, my parents would play music constantly, and they were big-time Baroque era fans. So from a very, very early age, I heard tons and tons of Bach and Vivaldi. It's kind of burned into my brain. And to this day, I can listen to pretty much any classical music, and it's like instantly sparks memories. So anyway, this was a great find, and it's just a killer record. It's so good. And it sells for buku bucks on Discogs. What did I pay for this? They had it marked at $24.99. And I don't know, they must have been slipping up. Maybe they thought, well, three records, it's got to be worth it more than $3 or $4 we'd normally put on a single LP. I was happy to pay $24.99 for it, I'm going to tell you. My mom had a record collection numbering about 500-600 LPs, and she was getting older. She was not listening to records anymore. She was into CDs. And she said, hey, Dave, why don't you have my records? Just take them and you'll enjoy them. And indeed, a lot of great records in her collection. They were virtually all classical. This was the one oddball in her collection. O.V. Wright, Nucleus of Soul, issued in the mid-1960s. And I listened to it and I thought, damn, this is really good, really good. It's a deep soul. Man, the guy pours so much heart and soul and feeling into into this music. It is really, really good. So I asked my mom about, where did this one come from? And she said, oh, that's something Jan found at a yard sale. Jan was her companion in later years, and he was a digger too. He loved to go to yard sales. I went to yard sales with him back in New Jersey, and we had a lot of fun. He was like a second dad to me. He was a great guy. Anyway, O.V. Wright, Nucleus of Soul. What a great, great record. So anyway, that's my list. I think I've got 11 here, but anyway, fun doing this video. Love these records, and this just goes to show you don't have to spend big bucks. You can find great records out there for dirt cheap. Love these records. Hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out my other videos, particularly that one, Jazz Hall, 1,300 albums. That's where Waltz for Debbie came out of. And there, if you watch that video, you'll see some incredible records in that hall. Anyway, thanks for watching. Catch you again next time. Bye.